Welcome, everyone, to Season 2, Episode 13 of His and Her Life Hacks podcast. My name's Dawne.
And I'm Larry.
And today, our topic is being a teacher in today's world. And we just happen to have a special guest with us who happens to be my daughter, Cierra Jacoby. Say hello.
Hello.
And then so basically, Cierra as a young child, was always carrying around her baby, and we were always playing school. And I swear it was innate from her, from birth, that she was going to be a teacher or a mommy or both. And that continued. And so fast forward all these years later, Cierra is a teacher, third grade at an elementary school locally here. So welcome, Cierra. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Yes.
We'd also like to acknowledge, if you can see it on the video, those who are watching on YouTube, Cierra gave us the sign, the His and Her Life Hacks podcast sign that's behind us that embellished our studio. So thank you.
Yes, we love it. Actually, I'm not sure if we can see it because it's a split screen, but stay tuned for future episodes or we'll fix that because it's super cool. But
so, Cierra, when my kids, my oldest, Larry, started out, it was 2001, so 23 years ago. Teaching was much different back then, right? So why don't you take us through or share from a teacher's perspective, how is it being a teacher today, the many hats you have to wear and challenges you face each day in the classroom?
So even like me in college, I'd say like when I was going to school to be a teacher, like what I thought this was going to be for a lot of it was I figured like, 75% is lesson planning because pretty much I feel like that was just drilled into us in college. And I spent hours making lessons and, now looking back, it's like that is probably 5% of it. And all there is, what you see in the classroom today. And I don't know that they didn't prep us for that, but it's a whole different world when you're actually living in it. But this is my 5th year teaching. So I've been, I'm still learning, of course, not an expert in any way, but definitely different from what I remember even being in school and then from what I observed in college. But, speaking to all the hats we wear, we're a therapist, we're a coach, we're a mentor, we are, a cheerleader, we are a comedian, like all while teaching. And, just throughout the day, there's so much that goes on that I always say, I wish I could film myself just so people could understand, what goes on. And it's just, it's funny. It's hard, but it's funny to look back and, like to see, like to think of my day. Just even last week, it was like, Miss Jacoby, so-and-so is crying, and I look over and they're sobbing. So I'm like, all right, let's go out in the hallway. Let's talk it through. They miss their parent. I come back in. The other one's like, Miss Jacoby, my ear is really hurting. And they're like hacking up a lung. And then the other one's like, when you were out there, they threw a pencil at me. And it's all like, okay, yep, let's sit down. Okay, sure. Why don't you go to the nurse, see what they can do? Are you okay? Do you want to write a letter to your mom? Managing it all at once.
And trying to teach a curriculum in the middle of that. Yes.
Yeah.
You sound like a conductor trying to orchestrate this classroom as it's going on. It's like constant.
Yeah. And I mean, I have a great class and I've had, the students and families of where I teach, it's amazing. And it's not, it's just every day there's something new going on and, you're always trying to, speak to like, or how are they feeling? Because if they're having an off day, their behavior is going to be off from that. So then you're managing not only the behavior, but, conflict resolution between different students. And then, also letting them be kids and have fun, but trying to stay structured and follow the day. And so, yeah, it's definitely different from what, you go to college and you expect like this whole day to just be like, okay, now it's language arts. Okay, the lesson is done. Now we're moving into this. But there's so many times where it's like, what? Right now, I'm seeing a lot of conflict between all of you. So we're going to drop that and we're going to do a quick little mini lesson on how to, make up or how to not be tattletales on each other.
Right.
So it's kind of just, moving quickly throughout the day and just, thinking on the fly. And, Doug always makes fun of me because I can never make a decision of like what I want for dinner. And I was like, you don't know how many decisions I make. Yeah. Day that when I get home, I don't want to make any decisions.
Yeah, right.
That is true. That is very true, especially when you're multitasking constantly. And I'd say in today's world, there's a lot more Like I think back to your childhood. I don't remember this being an issue, but the heavy social, emotional needs, and sometimes it's coming or stemming from the home, and that life today is much different. It's harder. Now, how does the school support you? Because I know from our conversations, you said that there's a para, and a para is basically a teacher's assistant, but then there's other support systems within the school to help teachers today. So that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that we have, you know, very diverse population of students, and we have students that have special needs, and they're mixed into our classes to be in the room with the other kids as much as possible. So sometimes a child will have like a one-on-one paraprofessional. They are superheroes. We wouldn't be able to, get through the school year without them. They do so much for our school and for our kids. Sometimes though, like for example, this year I don't have any in my classroom. But we do still have like aides that go out till recess and do lunches and everything with them still. But speaking to like social, emotional, our guidance counselor is amazing. We can send a child down; they're able to walk down to talk to them at any time. She has a little mailbox; they can write her something. We have different programs that are like therapists that come into our school. We have many different teachers and mentors and support in the building.
Hmm.
But sometimes it's just you don't have always that time to be like, all right, let me call them up. So it's a lot of time
Right.
on us to figure it out in that moment, and then later we can kind of figure out. I'll reach out to your parents. We'll set up a meeting. We'll do this. But again, a lot of it just falls on the teacher in the moment to kind of handle the problem at that time. But we definitely are supported. I feel very supported at the school that I am in. And, there's a lot of help around us. And, I sometimes like my third grade team, we're all in like a pod together, and we'll be like, all right, can this kid come on over to you for a second, and like we're like, of course, or we'll bring them a folder and nothing's really in the folder, but they just need to like get up and get moving, and we're
Oh,
like,
that's a
can
good
you bring
idea.
it across the building to
Yeah.
Mrs. Like, yeah, sure. And then there's like nothing in it. It's like, can you print this out later? And it's not really for that reason, but we all help each other out, so
So,
It's awesome.
unfortunately, in today's day and age, though, you probably also have to do things like crisis management, right?
Yeah.
And prepare and plan for that. So, a couple of questions like, what is that like for you to have to think about that? And also, how do you talk to the kids about that? Like, how do they might be nervous or anxious about what's going on and why it's being done. Can you share a little bit like how that works?
So when you say crisis, what kind of, there's so many different crises. So
Well, I'm just thinking about like in a school, like what happens in the world where there's an incident in the
right,
school. Somebody comes in the school is not supposed to be there, right?
right.
And
So
we've all seen those stories.
yeah, and it's sad because the kids, because of social media and siblings, they know so much more. I remember earlier in the year, it broke my heart. One of my students was like, "Miss Jacoby, do you know I have money in my backpack?" And I was like, "No, why?" And they're like, "Oh, because if a school shooter ever came in, I could give him all my money and bribe him to not hurt us."
Mm,
And in that moment, I just like swallowed all my feelings and was just like, "You're safe here. You don't have to worry about that. Like we will take care of you, and you don't have to even think of that. Like we're very
yeah,
safe. I would protect you," and so on. But they know so much more now. I'm a third grade teacher, so you think 8 and 9 year olds. And when I was 8 and 9, I had no idea what was going on in the world. It was all about what's happening at gymnastics and, maybe recess drama. So they're well informed. And, that is a heavy subject that, we always just remind the kids we're protected. We do drills, they practice. But, that area of crisis, of course, is a little heavier. But even just thinking about, sometimes they'll hear of like, something that happened at the Wawa and then they bring it to school,
mm,
or they know of something that happened with so and so's parents and they bring it and they talk about it. And it's like when one kid hears of them, the next. And it kind of just travels. So a lot of times instead of just, like, hush hush, it's more like, all right, well, let's talk about it. Like, how does that make you feel? Of course, but just so here's what we would do in that situation, or you don't have to worry about that. They're handling that. So it's just a lot of, I think, talking. I think the way that some people think with kids, like, oh, don't bring it up or don't talk about it. I think it's kind of the opposite. They want to they're going to hear it, and it's better so that they can, like, get through it and feel calm about it. So it's on us to kind of be like, you're safe, let's talk it through, and you can get those emotions out, like, even they'll say in like a fire drill, like, well, Mr. Jacoby, why do we have our jackets on if we're,
Yeah.
I'm like, well, listen, it's a drill today and it's 19 degrees out, so I don't want you guys to freeze. But yes, in the moment, we wouldn't cut on our jackets, and be ready to go. We just run out and go. And, they have so many questions, but you just want to make sure you address them.
Well, the one thing that you just said that triggers a thought of mine about emotions. So, the one thing I think that we need to bring to light is that most teachers become teachers because they have a love in their heart for children and a passion for helping people. It's almost an innate thing. Most of them are probably empathic, so they have deep feelings. So then you transfer that, you're teaching a classroom and you have situations like that where you said you kind of had to tuck your feelings and just show up and be strong for the kids. And as a parent, you do that, but many times you don't have 19 children that you have to show up for. You have maybe 2 or 8 in Larry's case. But, so that's like, I feel like we need to humanize teachers and just say, like, wow, that's a big deal. Teachers, they have hearts and they're tucking away tears many times, or they have their own stuff that they're bringing to school that you have to put away because now you have 19 children, and maybe out of 19, 7 of them are having a meltdown, and you just want to cry with them because maybe your day is horrible, but you can't.
Right.
So these are the things that I think we really need to bring to the surface and honor teachers for, because I know what it's like just from being with you, where if you have a hard classroom, you have that hard classroom for a year. And you have to show up every day, despite how you feel, or despite what you're going into. It could be a war zone and you're like, oh my God, I can't. But then you do. You just go in and you power up. So I think that we should all applaud teachers. You are all with our children, 8 hours of a day, and sometimes parenting them more than they are getting at home, unfortunately. So I feel like we need to talk about that. And then speaking of parents, so like, what are some of the expectations that are maybe either put on you or you feel that they expect of you, from parents? I know now, they email back and forth, whereas I don't
Right.
think that was a big deal when you were in school. I don't remember that. Technology, enrichment work, stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely, I would say, parents are more involved, at least, from what I remember, like being with you, you would write notes and stuff, but nothing how it is today. And I think, and again, that could, be the school that I'm in, but, they want to be involved, and that's amazing because, the kids need a team, we're all a
Mm-hmm.
team, and they need to have that homeschool communication. But yeah, sometimes it's, my kid's not getting enough homework, or, this is too easy, or, can they keep their Chromebooks at school, or actually, can we bring them home every night? And it's, as a, teacher, and for me being a pleaser, it's really hard because it's like, well, I want everybody to be happy and I want everybody to do this. And,
Yeah.
this year I was like, all right, I'm going to try this whole new reading system. And then I put out a survey and it's like half of them love it, half of them hate it. I was like, all right, so it'll be optional, like, it's like I really have to put my foot down and be like, it's my classroom, it's my rule, and I can't please everybody. But, I encourage them to be involved as much as possible. But I also have to, realize, I can help you in all these ways and here's the support, but, this is really what I can do for you and your child. But when they get home, like, it's on you to do, like a lot of times with like the Chromebook situation, it's like they're able to keep it here or not. But, parenting your own kid on their social media and on their devices at home, that's going to be on you to do and not for the teachers. Of course, we go beginning of the year like, oh, a Chromebook contract, and I'm always like, can't use it for anything other than school related, because then all the tabs will go and then you'll blow up your Chromebook. Kind of use like a scare tactic on them, so they're not like playing video games on it. But yeah, I mean, it's huge to have the parent support, and our community is amazing, and our PTO is wonderful, and they're always helping out and supporting in every way possible, which is great. And you don't always get that, at every school that you're in. I remember when I was teaching in North Carolina, it was a totally different story. And if you
Mm-hmm.
heard back from a parent, it was like, oh, thank you so much, like for this time. So it really just all depends where you are. But yeah, I mean, seeing you as a parent, I remember, you're not going to get along with everybody. It's like coaches and,
Yeah.
it's hard.
Well,
So
I was just going to say that.
Yeah.
I mean, just like you're trying to navigate 19 children and
Mm-hmm.
how they're showing up and the emotions they went through, you're also navigating 19 sets of parents and their
Mm-hmm.
backgrounds and what their education experience was like, what their expectations are like for their children. I mean, I see that a lot with coaches right today, trying to coach today and what parents have in expectations for their children on the playing field, and then, how that translates to what they want the coaches to be doing. Like, it just adds so much complexity, I think, to what you have to navigate each day. And then again, going back to, we admire you so much for any teacher for being able to do that.
Yeah.
sometimes when since I'm not a parent yet, I try to, sympathize with parents and be like, I understand, I remember my mom, going through and doing all of this all at once and juggling. So although I'm not a parent and I don't understand a lot of what they do and all the juggling act, I try to, tell them I realize everything that they're doing. And I try not to send home a ton of work and projects. Yeah. I get the kids are in so many sports and activities and there's not time for it. And I remember that as well. So
I was going to say, do you remember? So that was 3rd grade for Cierra.
Joy.
And I think it was the only teacher that I ever yelled at, because every other teacher I loved. I was PTO mom. I was there for everything. But this one teacher sent home college amounts of homework. And like on a Friday even.
But now being a teacher, she did say it was her first year teaching.
I know.
3rd grade, and she had a meltdown. So now I can understand. But at the time, I was a student and I had gymnastics and I just wanted to get there. But I had like 5 textbooks I was bringing home.
In 3rd grade.
In 3rd grade. And I was like, this is insane. What kind of homework? And of course it meant like I had to do the homework with her, and meanwhile we have gymnastics, like she said, and everything else. So it was nuts, but yes. So let's talk about social media and how it's really impacting children today negatively. But of course, the technology side of devices has a positive because they're very smart with it, but it's also really corrupting our children and social media today. So what do you see? Like, you shared something funny with me the other day, like a term.
Yeah, like thinking of, what I hear from 8 and 9-year-olds now is just, it's just like a TikTok feed, like they're hearing thing from TikTok or YouTube or older siblings that are on it already. They have Apple Watches, they have phones. Like, I'm like, I didn't get my pink razor until middle school, but they hear it all. And, it's tough sometimes because you definitely see that they're losing a lot of their innocence. And, they'll come in and they'll be like, Miss Jacoby, for Christmas, I got a skincare fridge, and then I got my drunk elephant cream, and I got, my ice roller. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, you don't even have a pimple. You to do all of that. You're 8 years old.
Yeah.
All they're being influenced from what they see, and like I'll come in and they'll be like, oh my gosh, Miss Jacoby, slay, that fit looks amazing. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like they talk like middle schoolers.
Wow.
And, I've had classes before where the boys are all like already acting like middle school boys and everything is like sexualized. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like again, you're 8, 9 years old, but they're just hearing it so much earlier. And it's tough because a lot of the times even, we'll have recess, and it happens to be indoor recess, and they all want to just go right to their Chromebooks and like play on their devices. And I'm like, you know what, we're going to do a device-free indoor recess today. And they like it when they are told that, because then they pull out the Twister and they play Uno and they have so much fun, and they act like a kid,
Yeah.
But it's always their first that they just want to run to that device. They're just so used to it. Mm-hmm. But, thinking of if I had kids, I'm on devices too for work, and then I go to my phone, and like they're just seeing that and they're growing up with it. But like you said, there are positives. For example, during like our free write time in the beginning of the year, I was like, you guys can go on to something called PowerPoint, and you can do like a free write. You can add some pictures and, do some typing. I might have shown them maybe for 5 minutes, quick things like how to add a new slide. I would say 2 days later, I had students sending me their presentations already, full
Oh my
presentation.
gosh.
I share this with the class, and they made an entire book of our entire class. They went around with their camera on their Chromebook, took a
Wow.
picture of everyone in the class, wrote bullet points, facts about each student, and then went through and presented it. And they added like little designs and pictures. And I was like, I didn't even teach. Like, it's just unbelievable how they can navigate,
Yeah.
their devices.
Technology.
So
Yeah.
it's good and bad. It's hard because they're hearing a lot more. Like I said earlier, like they're more aware of what's going on in the world, and all they talk about is Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift and the drama. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how do you guys know? I feel like I'm hearing this right now.
Yep.
It's what my friends and I are talking about. So it's just weird, but
Yeah.
it's not going to change. It's only, I'm sure,
Yeah.
going to get even crazy.
True.
So it's more just teaching them now, how to be safe on the internet, what you should and should not be watching. But of course, that's more parent side at home. But
Mhm.
in school, they're not allowed on YouTube. They're not allowed on any site that's not like school related, or like we have like a math playground, game site they're allowed to go on. But just, teaching them how to navigate it safely, and also give them those boundaries. Like, for Friday Free Time today, we're going outside, and I don't want to hear,
Mhm.
complaining about it, because when I was 8 and 9 years old, I wanted to go outside and play, and you
Yeah.
Yeah.
dragged me inside. I'd have to say this year, my class, they do love going outside, and they all play like class tag together, and they
Mhm.
want me to join in, and it's fun to see them be kids and act their
Yeah.
age, and just like have fun.
That's good.
Yeah. Back to the social media. I think that, again, to your point with the parents, like when they leave, I think it's easy sometimes as parents. You're busy, you got a lot of things going on. It's easy
Right.
to give the device to them and to, go play. But it shows you just how important it is to stay connected to your kids, because, that device contains 1,000 applications in the palm
Yeah.
of their hands. And there's a lot of them that are not a good influence on what your
Right.
child's thinking, feeling, then the actions that they take. And so, the role of the parent and making sure that that's done in a positive and it's monitored and so forth is,
Right.
I think, super important.
Yeah.
Um, I wanted to ask you too, though, about the role of social media and how it impacts how you teach, because today, I mean, their ability to focus on something, this TikTok, 10 seconds, and they're moving on
Yeah.
to the next app or the next, thing that pops up, they take it in and then they move on. So you're teaching them curriculum, they have to concentrate for a period of time. I mean, does that change how you have to teach them because they can only get snippets at a time? And
Yeah. I'd have to say my biggest tip for new teachers or any teachers is I live for energizers, or like brain breaks. And I have this book that I use, and I pull one out, and it's just like a quick way. They, like you said, they can sit, unless it's like a test. I would say third graders were 25 minutes maybe, that they're
Wow.
like full attention, and that's hard sometimes. So anytime it's after like a big instruction, I'm always like, all right, we're at our seats, then let's get up, do an energizer, and then we'll go to the carpet, and then you'll have flexible seating, and you can move around the room, and then you come back to your seat. So it's not a lot of just sitting at their desk, because I remember being young too, and I always had to be moving around, and I get that, they want to be, but those energizers could be a quick game of like Simon Says, or we play a game called Entourage, where it's like rock, paper, scissors, and they go around and they like battle each other. And it could be 2-3 minutes tops, but it just gets like their wiggles out, and then it like has a quick reset for them to come back, get ready to learn. And I mean, I do them all throughout the day, and just thinking of like anytime they're at their seats for a long period of time, it's like, all right, they're starting to tune me out. I see that. So it's time
Yeah.
to get them moving, or switch topics, or get an activity going. But just trying to keep the material as hands-on as possible, and engaging, and keeping it fun and light, and connecting it to them and their experiences, because that's the only way they're really going to listen. Because like you said, their attention span is definitely shorter. We've seen that since COVID. um they're even quick tempered with each other. They're just quick to jump on everything, and we've definitely seen that shift since COVID.
And that was my next comment. I was going to say, good segue to COVID. So you were chosen. I was going to say, like, the technology really escalated during COVID, and it really brought everything to the surface. And you were chosen to be one of the cyber teachers during COVID, which was hilarious because we were both living together at the time and working together remotely. Even though we were in different rooms, I remember hearing you as if you were sitting in my room because you had to be so animated and, to engage with the children and keep them entertained but structured. And I think I remember hearing you say 18 times in one day, like, up, we're going to mute, up, raise your hand, up, nope, Johnny, sit still, and it was just the same repetition.
Yeah.
But you did such a good job at keeping them entertained because they were engaged and they did follow the lesson. But when you were talking about just a few minutes ago about the 25 minutes, max sitting down, like think about that. Like COVID had them sitting for a day pretty much at a computer that, I'd like to say computers are ruining people's lives, but they're also enhancing people's lives. So it's such a bittersweet.
Right.
But yeah, so that was crazy and fun. You have any thoughts on that?
I mean, at the time I was teaching first grade cyber. And again, in the cyber program, they had the choice of either sending their kid to they would do like a half day in the beginning of like going to school in the morning. And then the afternoon, they do asynchronous work. And then the other half of the kids would come in the afternoon and do their asynchronous in the morning. Or they chose the cyber program where they just knew for the entire year I'm going to be on Zoom. Um, so I would say the parents that signed their kids up for the cyber program knew in some sort of way, they are going to be able to handle this, at least for my class that I ended up with of first graders, because, thinking of myself, Mom, you would have never signed me up for the cyber program. It just wouldn't have
No.
worked. So the kids that I did have, it was incredible that for 180 school days, these first graders, 6-year-olds, we came to school every day on Zoom, and they came and they followed their little, outline on Schoology, and I had links, and they did their work, they submitted it, and, every day. To think back is insane that we did that. But I mean, hilarious stories.
Oh yeah.
I'm in the middle of their living room every single day. So I know, them and their families and their pets, inside and out. We'd be taking a spelling test and they're like, Alexa, how do you spell? And I'm like, nope, you can't use Alexa. I'm right here. Is spelling test.
That's hysterical.
Like deciding to change on camera, or in the middle of the lesson they just get up and start jumping on their bed, and I'm like, oh, let's come sit down, or like you said, just the constant like, you're gonna mute, oh, you're muted, actually you need to unmute.
Yeah.
And we actually got a taste of that the other day. We had a remote instructional day.
I was gonna say that.
And it just brought me back because same with all the technology, issues they were all having. Like, I can't see you. Can you see me? I can't hear you though, but we can't. I'm like, leave and come back. Leave and come back. Hey, take out this worksheet. And it's snowing outside. Everyone's distracted. Not to mention my toddler puppy is literally havoc on my house. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, like I am not missing this at all. But yeah, it was a crazy time during COVID, and that's why I ended up choosing to go to school. They had like a little corner of a classroom for me to be able to work home from, because I just love being around people, so I knew I would not be able to be home by myself and do that, but also because I was so loud and you couldn't get anything done.
We were both screaming on top of each other because we were both on, I was doing meetings or conference calls and you were teaching a classroom. It was hilarious. It really was.
Yeah.
It was funny.
But
so
the kids
speaking of
through it all, which it's just, it goes to show like their resiliency through being able to go through a whole school year and, learn so much and, still be so engaged. And we had a ton of fun, and, I still tried to make it the best as possible. And we would do like material pickups where they'd actually see you in person. They'd be like, oh, you're shorter than I thought. Or,
yeah.
But it was cute. I mean, it's crazy to think back that we did it, but they learned a ton from that. Definitely in the technology department.
Yeah. And I remember even just the first year or two back after COVID, coming off of the virtual cyber school, the children almost didn't know how to behave anymore. Like
Mhm.
they socially, they were afraid to touch each other or play or be kids. And so
And there's
that
no
was an adjustment.
like forgot we raise our hand to talk, So
Yeah. 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 That was different. Now,
yeah.
speaking of puppies and children and all of that, so what's new for you? Like, what's coming for you in the horizon? I know you recently were engaged, and so you have a wedding that you're planning of your own. As
Yeah.
you mentioned, you have Missy, your new puppy, golden retriever, who is adorable and so feisty, and literally you reborn in a dog form. So all the things that you complain about, I'm like, yeah, that was you.
He's
Never
my
sitting still.
moment. But yes, so Doug and I planning our wedding for next September. Um, and Missy is our little daughter for right now, of course. But after the wedding and everything, as you know, would love to have kids of my own. And my students ask me all the time, when are you having kids? How many kids do you want? And so yes, I hope to have many of my own kids, and as teaching goes, would love to, be in third grade for a few more years, possibly go back down, maybe try second. Everyone says that might be my sweet spot because I really enjoyed kindergarten and first, and, now like third. So, might go down that path. But for this year, I have a lot of best friends getting married.
Yeah.
So we have their weddings and bachelorette parties and all the good stuff coming.
Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. That's awesome.
Busy couple years coming up for
Yeah,
sure.
along with your wedding.
Yeah.
Yes.
Lots to celebrate.
Yeah.
So this has been awesome. Like
Yeah.
I have such an appreciation for teachers, and I just what you shared today just further emphasized. I learned a lot about what really goes on in the classroom. My kids are now getting older. I have middle school as the youngest one, right? But what any last words you would have for someone who is considering being a teacher? Now, my daughter Celeste has one more year, and then she'll graduate with her education or teaching degree. So she's getting ready to start up. And she talks a lot about how much they focus on lesson plans.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell her to watch this podcast to find out the real story. Or
Yeah.
maybe another young teacher who's in her first few years and is coming to realization, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. Like,
Right.
what
And
advice, would you give for them, or last words would you have for them?
I would definitely say to start off with the subbing. I did that first to get your foot in the door and kind of just, you know, be a day in the life of a teacher first, like you said, to see if you truly like it. Because we do see a lot of times that people go through the whole program and they're like, this is not what I wanted. Or, you know what, I really don't want to be in elementary. I think I want middle school or high school. So just, starting out subbing, seeing where you like, what age group you like working with. Um, but yeah, you need to be fully invested and love it. That's the best part about my job is that I love going to school every single day, no matter all the hard stuff and challenges. It's fun. You get to be with kids who love you and love coming to school every day. And just, even if you're having a bad day, you walk in and you see their smiles and they start telling you all about their morning or their day or their dogs. And, they exude so much joy. And it's, the only career I think you can actually have fun every single day. But just make sure that you really love it and that you have the passion, but also that you save time for yourself. That's something I'm still learning in the process, but making sure to make time for yourself. I stay way too late this year. I've gotten a little bit better because I have my dog at home. But before I would get to school at 7 and stay until 7, and in the beginning, of course, there's so much more you have to make and learn as a new teacher. So that does come with it, but just making sure to, even when you have that class that tugs at your emotional, you got to be able to let it go and kind of just, I need to think of myself. And if you have your own family and kind of just, think of yourself too. Because if you are drained, you will not be your 100% self and be able to, be there for the kids as well. So that would be my advice to new teachers.
Great
And
advice.
I think that's probably a learning behavior or experience, because I know in the beginning when you first started, it was taxing on you. You would come home heavy with the emotions of, somebody in the class that was struggling and you kind of wanted to take him home with you. And it was like, how do I separate this? So that comes with experience too. So give it some time. And
Yeah,
awesome.
I can't even imagine having real children because how I'm so excited to come home to Missy. I'm sure once you have your own kids too, it's a little bit easier to leave the actual building as quickly
Yeah,
as to. I'm too
true.
OCD to have my desk perfectly ready for the next day. And I'm sure in
Yeah.
a few years it won't be that way.
Tear it out of there.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. You were a wonderful guest. It was a great topic and conversation, and hopefully will inspire many teachers out there. So, and you know what? Educate, I'd say, educate those who are not teachers and have some compassion for teachers, because I see the behind the scenes through you. And you know what? You're humans. You're underpaid. You are incredible human beings, and we're grateful to have you. So,
You do an incredibly important job.
yes. Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me today. I enjoyed it.
Awesome. Thanks so much. All right. Stay tuned, everyone, for our next episode.
Take care.
Bye.
Thank you for listening in to this episode of the His and Her Life Hacks podcast. We hope you enjoyed it. We look forward to having you join us on future episodes. If there's a topic that you would like Dawne and I to discuss, please feel free to contact us at dawne.jacoby@grit2grace.com or larry.ambrose@grit2grace.com. See you on the next one.